Hey folks, Kevin and Thea here.
Thea here.
So we're in the same position of yesterday's Model Y video because we wanted to, when Thea has some time off, actually spend a couple of minutes sharing with you another video. So today, one of the things I wanted to do was just give a high elevation overview of our gardening that we did this year. So 2020 was a pretty good year as far as being productive, but we had some challenges throughout the year. So what are your thoughts?
What challenges?
The drought?
Yeah, that was a big one. Yeah, it was quite dry this year. Our ponds pretty much emptied, most of them, and we were there with nets scooping fish out. But you had all the irrigation, and that really made a big difference. And then on the food forest, you had the swale, so we didn't have to water, trees up there. So that was good. But I guess I thought that went really well. And the only plant problems I think we had horrible luck with the broccoli, and the cauliflower did not like the heat.
Our Acer red cabbage didn't do as well as we've had in the past, but this, so we live in a very cold temperate climate. We're in Oswego, New York, where this time of year, although we got some sun out there today, it's mostly overcast from throughout most of November through February and part of March. So we have all the lake effect cloud covers that are here, and then we get lots of snowfalls. And being in a cold temperate climate like we are, we usually get a fair amount of rain. We'll have a month of very little rain or 2 months of very little rain, but we had an absolute drought. The other thing we had this year was we're having these longer heat waves. So the amount of evaporation from the soil surface, from transpiration through the plant leaves and all, that's pretty significant. So a couple of things that really helped us with the gardens, the permanent raised beds that we're talking about today basically, things that really worked out extremely well was, number one is using drip irrigation. So we're getting moisture right to the root level, to the soil surface that drips very gradually and maintains that area. The other thing that we use are weed mats, not just to suppress weeds, but also to put some an artificial mulch over the surface of the soil, which helps to decrease evaporation from the soil surface as well. So we ended up, even it was a hot times and drought times, the amount of water required to maintain the plants was relatively minimal. But in areas along usually our most productive bean area, the very long trellis that we have, the mulch that I put around the tunnels, which are wood chips, had gradually been breaking down over time, and that decreased the amount of mulch surface there that didn't help during these hot, dry, prolonged periods. Even though there was drip irrigation going to the plants, the mulch surface wasn't covered with a weed mat or with fresh wood chips on the surface, and we had more evaporation, which really some of the beans didn't do as well as a result of that.
But they were happier, the ones that were under the locust tree.
That's right.
Shade.
Yeah. Well, during the beginning of the season, they were happier there, but at the end of the season, after I put wood chips in, more wood chips in, the area that was out in the full sun and had more of a mulch surface did better as well. But our cauliflower and broccoli, those are really cool season crops, fall and early spring. And we planted that along with all our other ones right after, what is it, Labor Day? No, what's the one in the spring? In March. Or May. May.
We usually end up doing it Memorial Day.
Memorial Day weekend.
We usually end up doing it end of May, beginning of June, because once in a while we have the weird frost thing. And
that's right.
We've been
Right.
bitten by that. Like we put peppers in, and that didn't go so well because we had a really warm spring, and then we thought, oh, we could plant. Well, that they all died.
Right.
That was about 5 years ago. So we learned our lesson to wait maybe to June 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's worked out pretty well. Waiting, our seed starting really worked out well this year. We got really good growth and developments of the seeds, not to the point where they got completely root bound. The hardening off worked out pretty well. We didn't have to spend a full 2 weeks doing the hardening off. So that worked out because you're moving seed trays in and out. Certainly, the weed mats and the drip irrigation worked out very well. The other thing is we've been spending a lot of time each year saving more seed from the heirloom open pollinated varieties that we really like the most. Like right now, the Santa Rosa tomatoes.
Yeah, we like those.
Yeah,
Because we can save them nicely. We did experiment this year. Kevin came up with because we like tomatoes on our wraps and stuff like that.
all winter long.
Yeah, all winter long. So we ended up slicing those because they're so meaty and not as liquidy in the food processor, and then putting them in the small Ziploc bags and putting them in the freezer. So we just get them out, let them defrost and drain any extra liquid in a strainer, and they've been doing great. We weren't sure if they would taste good or not, but they're fantastic. So now we can have tomatoes of that variety all wintertime.
So what we use, so the ways that we save the tomatoes, certainly we eat them fresh all summer long, and these are absolutely delicious. They aren't, they're really meaty, I guess is the way of describing, not as much water in them. And the things we do is we can take them and freeze them for a variety of cooking processes, which is really just simple washing them off and just pulling off the ends of them, and then you freeze them, and that's for all our cooking and canning during the winter months. And then the other thing we do is slice them and then dehydrate them, so we get lots of dehydrated tomato as well. And then the what's the food processor that you use for doing all
Breville.
this? The Breville one. Man, is that a really good one. I'll put a link to that in the description below so that if you're interested in seeing the one that we like. This one, we've had all different food processors.
Mostly Cuisinarts.
Yeah.
But this one I like even better. It seems like the motor is...
it's really
great.
powerful, and it can cube your vegetables and fruits in different sizes easily, quick and easy. And the feeding things, it can take things so quickly that as quick as you can put them down the chute, it just processes them, and then you got to empty the darn thing out. It's amazing. So we do so many fruits and vegetables with that. But the other thing we decided to try this year, what we do is we run the tomatoes, or Thea runs the tomatoes through the Breville and gets all these slices. Then she puts them into the freezer bags. Then when we go to use them in our wraps and all, we just take the freezer bag out, let it thaw out, and there's still moisture in the tomatoes. And when we make our wraps and all, I don't like the drips pouring out of the wraps. So we use a Tupperware container that has a small perforated base that fits inside of the Tupperware, so no water leaks out, but it leaks in the base of the Tupperware, and that just goes in the refrigerator, and we keep pulling the tomatoes out of that for our wraps or whatever else we want to add the tomatoes onto, so you get the sweet tomato taste, but it's not watery by taking the frozen ones and thawing them out. So that's worked out pretty well. We really got, I mean, we've got 6 or 7 freezers and 2 refrigerator freezers, and they're all jam-packed right now. Yeah.
And I'm grateful for the dehydrators, the Excaliburs, because we've had those for several years, and we just ended up with 8 of them because we use them all at once, because we harvest everything all at once, and this way we can get them all in at the same time. But they help with space too, because then we put them in the mason jars, and then they're easy access. I just grab a jar, and we also have the seal a meal attachment so that you put on the lid of the jar and it sucks the air out. So they stay fresh a long time. And I've given stuff to some of our friends and all, and they love it, you know.
Yeah. And these can all go down in our root cellar. So once it's been dehydrated and all, we have some stock in our living room. I've shown that before, where you can see all our canned goods there and our herbs and other parts as well. And we have a whole variety of different foods that we keep in our garage. But we have the root cellar where we can take, geez, if we, I don't know, when we harvest all the leeks and dehydrate them all, there's all of these quart jars or half-gallon jars, and there's enough for a couple of months in here, but then the rest go down into the root cellar. So there's a bountiful supply of materials that you get from your garden, and trying not to waste them. The only thing that will end up wasting some this year will be the kale, because we can't consume it as quickly as we'd like. We already have our freezers completely jam-packed. There have been suggestions of dehydrating it. That's great. It's just the time. Our lives just don't allow us to do it.
When I retire, we can do things, but I got 3 more years.
Yeah. So it's, there's so much more that can be done. And this year, one of the things we decided to do with all of our permanent raised beds is to reduce the amount of food that we'd be growing in each bed. And so what we did was, instead of using the weed mats the way we had done in the past, was having holes in them, like most YouTubers that you see using the weed mats are burning holes in them, and I've made videos in the past how we did that. But by using the weed mats where the weed mats just come up and basically touch each other in between each plant with a single row of plants, while they grow so big, they produce so much food in each one of those plants. It's the opposite of square foot gardening, but it really has met all our needs. If we had more help on the property, to help us with this, or we had the ability to do a farm market or a CSA, community sponsored agriculture, where you give them baskets of food and all, then I would probably modify our systems. The only plants that we didn't use this system is our leeks, which I made 2-row instead of 3-row this year, and that worked out just great. Our strawberry beds are in our handicap beds. That works out great each year. And our bed just to the east of the strawberry beds, where we had basil and spinach and beans and hot peppers over there as well. So one of the things I'd say that's really worked out a lot is choosing the heirloom variety that you really like a lot, or the hybrid that you've been reproducing each year on your own, that's almost an heirloom. That consistently gives you the same quality and texture and nutrition and taste. That has really worked out a lot. Like I mentioned with the San Marzano tomatoes, or the King Richard leeks, or whatever it is, saving the seeds from each one of those. And we've used the dehydrator this year. For 2 years now, I've been gradually using the older style dehydrators, where you can have the temperature be all the way down, so there's really no heating element going on in there, and it's just the air flowing as well. The other thing that I would say that really has helped out a lot with this year's gardening systems is our drying racks. I made these probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I initially used them just for drying some of the garlic and all. Now we've been doing the garlic and the shallots. Now we got the beans on them at this point. So
Tell them how big they are.
They're 4 foot by 4 foot. Now make a video with a garden update. We'll show you the beans in them. But they're basically hardware cloth, 1/2-inch hardware cloth. That I use old 2x4s and 2x2s and screws to hold them together and made them stackable. And I've got another design in for future, so that it can have a little bit easier storage, but all be on wheels, so I can push these big stacks of these drying racks around. But we use the dehumidifier over in the work area along with fans, and that takes those green the beans that are need to be dried before we remove the hulls and save all those beans.
For Kevin's refried beans that he eats every single day. I think I have to make some this weekend, don't I? You get
I think so.
Oh,
You better get on that.
All right, we gotta hurry up then here.
So all in all, I'd say that things really worked out pretty darn well with the gardens.
I mean, considering it was 90 to 100 degrees and the food forest part, I mean, we got a lot of fruit there and all, and that's without watering them, you know. And so I think it was a good year.
Yeah, one of my things I'm trying to do each year with our vegetable gardens is by integrating the systems that we're doing, by having the companion plants and habitats and niches around even the canal systems that we've got, and having the varieties that we have. One, we've got a great integrated pest management system, so our pest load is very low nowadays. It used to be, we used to have more and more pests and more issues with disease in our plants years ago. Now we have negligible. We do get the cabbage moth worms and some of it at the end of the season, but the birds, the kingbirds have done such a good job. Our wasps have done such good. All of our companion beneficial insects have done.
And the kingbirds had babies.
And the kingbirds had babies, and those babies did a good job at the end of the season as well. So the pest management is down, the weed management is down, the irrigation is down, and this all equates to I don't have to spend as much time in the gardens as I ever did in the past. Really, it's becoming much less dependent on human labor to get this bountiful crop at the end of the season. And remember, if you saw some of the videos, I was out building access roads with beaver dams, extending ponds, doing all the other projects that we have to go on around here. So that was one of my big goals, is to gradually allow us become become benign benefactors of a gardening system. So in other words, we're neglecting it to a certain point, but to a point that isn't causing harm at all in the gardens. So that's been really a big advancement. Gradually each year we're getting a little bit better. So we'll be making plans pretty soon for next year and on some of the tweaking that we'll do for next year's crops.
And we always have to have kale so the cats could lay under the leaves.
That's right.
And listen to the toads and the mice under the mats.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up. I'll try to put a link to the Breville or anything else that we talked about in the video.
Dehydrators, might as
the
well.
Dehydrators down below. Really, these things have helped us out a lot over the years. And I will say this, all these things take time and cost money to do, but do it gradually. That's what I say. Gradually build upon successful systems and learn from your failures throughout the process.
And do it as your passion, not because you have to or should.
That's right. All right, folks. Take care and have a great day.
Take care. See you guys.
Bye-bye now.